The ideas I had about Muslims came from being surrounded by them. They were humble people that were concerned with their everyday lives and their children and their wives and husbands, just like any other person would be. So my ideas of Muslims were basically what I saw, that they were good people, nice people. I didn't have any issues with a single Muslim that I had ever met.
I'm a minority too, so not everybody's the same, and you've definitely been on the other side. So I guess I didn't know much about Muslims, pretty much until you join the military, and then you go through training, and that's when I really started. I guess that's when I started hearing derogatory comments. So that's when I started getting my first real perceptions about other people.
I've been exposed to Islam or Muslims, but it didn't really have. Growing up there wasn't a lot of Islamophobia. Back then, to me, Muslim was just someone who worshipped a certain type of faith, no different from one of the many hundreds of other different religions out there. It just happened to be one of the more predominant ones.
Before I went in the military, I was really into basketball, NBA basketball, and there was a player, Chris Jackson, who converted to Islam and renamed himself Sharif Abdul Rahim, I think, or no, Abdul Rahouf. And at one point, he was playing the game, and they played the national anthem. He didn't stand up for it. It was a big deal on ESPN. And that's like my junior year in high school. And I was like, what? Why wouldn't you stand up for the national anthem? And I did a little research and talked to some people about that. Actually, one of our teachers at our high school, which was an all-white high school, by the way, but we had one black teacher who happened to be Muslim. And I was able to speak to him about that, and he explained. But I did not understand Islam at that point.
In boot camp, it was a team building experience. No one is excluded or shunned, no matter what your background. You're there for each other.
Oh, you hear a lot of derogatory terms, not just of Muslims, but everybody from other cultures, even your own, is always instead of saying that person of that descent, you say dang on this head or something, dang on that, and that's unfortunately that's all you hear through training. You get raghead all the time, which is, I don't even know if that's accurate. It definitely feels wrong, but that one's probably the one. Or every male is referred to as a haji, which is not true. Those are probably the two ones that get thrown out left and right. And I don't think anybody. I think it's only everybody really means it as derogatory. It's definitely ignorant. That talk was just constant throughout. Every time you're in training, I guess to get you motivated, trainers say, "Oh, what are you gonna do when Haji this comes at you?" And it just gets, and you don't even think about it at that point. But it's constant throughout. Yeah.
Especially in basic training, the drill sergeants start to cultivate that sense of fairness. They'd bring out a computer into the squad bay or the platoon bay or whatever, and show us videos of suicide bombers, all this stuff. And, pretty much the only portrayal of them, there's some people Iraqis, since that was we were at war in Iraq, whatever you want to call it. That's pretty much the only way that they portrayed Iraqi people. They had to be on guard, constantly watching them. They would use their kids against us, this other stuff. They would definitely play on the radical Islam side of things. Make every Iraqi person or Muslim person out to be an extremist of sorts. They definitely created an us and them dynamic. So, my earliest memories of basic training and before training was the type of stuff we were talking about. military, we talk about Iraqi people the same way that in the military we talk about Vietnamese and Vietnam War, dehumanizing them, and Vietnam was like Goose or Charlie or whatever, like for us it was like Haji, Talhada, Rek, whatever. So that attitude it's pretty common in the content. And I wouldn't say it's frowned upon at all. It's not encouraged openly, I guess, but I mean, it's definitely accepted.
I joined in September of 2000, before 9/11. So back then the Army was trying to be an all-inclusive, kindler, gentler Army. And so why, hate on one religion or another, especially if you have some soldiers who are Muslims. There's actually a couple Muslim chaplains. So I didn't really hear anything about it.
My second weekend, they brought us all into an auditorium, sat us down, and got all serious. And they were like, "Listen, Iran has just shot 4 nuclear missiles, aimed at the United States. We're going to be able to defeat, to shoot those missiles down, but they declare war on us. We're all at war right now." And we're all like, "Huh?" It's like a 4-week of boot camp. Like, we weren't expecting shit. And, I mean, they went so far as to say, like, okay, so you're going to be here, you're going to be here, you're going to be this unit, blah, blah, blah. We're like, fuck. It's like really happening. Like, we're at war. And, we started kind of getting a little bit like, all right, we're at war. We let it go for like a couple hours, and they're like, okay, so this was a drill. This is the same thing that would have happened to you had you been in the Korean War or something. What? It was messed up. They're like, this is the same thing that happened, during the Korean War. If you were in boot camp during the Korean War, this is the same thing that happened. We're like, okay, well, Korea didn't shoot missiles at us, but whatever. But, yeah, it got ramped up, and it was like, yeah, I can remember saying, fuck yeah, I'm going to shoot Raghead. I mean, I was in boot camp. That's what I thought I should have said. We were on the rifle range. There's a target that is called a dog target. And it's a silhouette of a man like this. So it's shoulders, head and shoulder. And when we were firing, they would say, imagine a turban on that and aim lower.
How did you picture the terrorist?
Honestly, just like everybody else, something wrapped around their head, beard, and screaming Allah, Allah Akbar. I'm not proud of that, but that's what I thought. Right after 9/11, yes, I did. It was a bearded, turban man for a couple of years. Because that's what we were taught. And that was indoctrinated in our heads. That's what we were like looking to hunt. We were like, oh, finally, yes. Thank you. I don't know about any other branch of the military, but the Marine Corps, that been forever. I mean, as soon as Vietnam ended, it was turbans.
No, that's when everything sort of changed. After boot camp, after technical school. Once I got to Dover, Delaware, my home station, then that's when things really changed because, it becomes like a 9-to-5 job and you get comfortable with your people, those around you. What starts off as, just kind of going back to high school, the kids just joking around or, poking fun at each other, and then race gets involved, and then it can become a part of a wider issue. And being the only person of Muslim background in my unit, in my shop, it did make me feel a little singled out, because there was a few guys, again, with the harsh name calls, and really I didn't feel any, before this in my life at any time, I never felt prejudice on that scale. And I was supposed to be, with those that I would fight with, and give the ultimate sacrifice with, and here they are, you know, calling names or whatever, and making certain relations and things like that to others, you know, terrorists, Osama, Saddam, all of the above.
After 9/11 happened, things changed a little bit. You know, there were certain words that entered the daily grammar of soldiers around that there was, you know, terms like, you know, Haji and stuff like that, which, I mean, even I used the term. It didn't really seem racist as far as I was concerned, but that was just part of the culture.
Pretty much anything you could think of, you know. You want to just say it? Like,
Go for it.
Sam, we wouldn't use like terms like local national or Iraqi a lot of the time. You know, if we were talking, like, oh yeah, it's Haji over here, Haji this, Haji that. You know, some guys would definitely take some liberties with their labeling, but
Haji. That didn't make any sense to me. I always laughed at that. I would call people out on that and say that's Johnny Quest. Ahmed was a big one. When somebody would say Haji, I would say, you know what? Explain to me why you're calling this person Haji. I would ask that. Yeah. 9 times out of 10, nobody would be able to explain it. To me, naming somebody who you were trying to shoot at is, I don't know. It's kind of counterproductive.
On supervisory level, I didn't feel that sort of behavior or prejudice. It was at the airman level or at the fellow coworker level that sort of prejudice existed. Never from NCOs or my superiors. They didn't turn a blind eye because it sort of became an issue in the shop with me, because it was getting to a point where, you know, it just got bothersome, it got tiresome, like every day. Like, hey, Osama, maybe then. It's like, dude, come on, really? We've been over this, you know. It's just got to a point where it was disgusting, you know, for me to just want to deal with even, or just not say anything about. So, you know, I spoke up, and at that point, it pretty much came to me. Sometimes it's joking, a lot of times it feels more real, and it depends on the person. But yeah, after that point, you know, it was just really with those that I was comfortable with, you know, that because it never went away. I mean, you know, but you know, those that you're really comfortable with, and you can have that back and forth with. You know, I know it's kind of bad, but when you're okay with someone, you know, you can poke fun at each other and not hurt each other's feelings.
Definitely not my shop, or I would shop. I refer to the people I work with, public affairs. You know, we joke around, but definitely we have. I guess we would. I don't know. There wouldn't be a reason for us to talk like that. When you go to training, when you do, say, a weapons course, or basically any type of combat course that might prepare you for deployment later, that's when you hear it.
There's some guys that really stood out, you know, I guess the kind of shit that they were saying. And I think the majority were pretty well-meaning. The officers that we had, my second platoon leader, was the platoon leader that I had when I first deployed to Iraq. He was kind of like a good old boy from the South, and like kind of thought he was Captain America. And, I think he would have liked to see Iraq as like a Christian country.
I deployed twice. Once in 2004 to Qatar for a little over 4 months, and then again in 2006 to Bagram, Afghanistan, and that was a little bit over 4 months again. So our briefings consisted of really just simple things. We didn't really get too many pamphlets or handouts with basic commands or how to speak with the locals or anything, because I think the Air Force mission was a little bit different than the Army mission. Even though I tried to get out into the actual field, I was basically confined to the bases that I was at. And I don't remember any extended briefings or anything from my NCOs to study those guards or anything based on the expectations that were set forth to us. A lot different than what the Marine guys or Army would be. So I would say, as far as if I were in a situation where I was in Afghanistan and I separated from my unit, then yeah, I'd probably feel like the Air Force training in itself wasn't inadequate.
The general attitude with Army cultural training is just it's a joke. I didn't take it seriously. I don't think most of the guys take it seriously. We didn't really care enough about the Iraqi people to get to know their cultures and customs. Yeah, it just didn't seem like something that was important at the time.
Definitely got it. Not when I knew I was going to do lioness training, so it wasn't male specific. It was more female specific in a lot of language stuff. As far as relating to males, it was usually they might get offended if you talk to them because you're female. That sort of training. But with most of the cultural stuff was women, how to talk to them, how to search them. And then also, if there's a man with them, don't disrespect them because that might cause her trouble later. Just that sort of stuff. Like the dates, you should be careful. Like Ramadan's coming up, something might happen. Not in the context of, not for me to be more sensitive to other people, but in the context for me, keeping my safety. One of my first conversations with someone was an Iraqi policeman, and it was regarding Jewish faith. And from there, he got so pissed off from that conversation. I said, I'm not going to bring this up anymore, or any religion in general, because obviously this is a touchy subject. And he was really pissed. So I don't want to piss off the people I'm working with. So that never came up again.
We would get some, cultural sensitivity training. A lot of it was just like death by PowerPoint. I think they had a certain standard that they had to meet on paper, as far as like the types of briefings that they had to get or give us or something. It just seemed like something we had to get through, not something that we would spend a lot of time focusing on. Spent a lot of times going over like the finer points of how to clean up building, but not the finer points of how to deal with like an entirely separate culture. We would talk about like Iraqi culture and customs, and then almost like it was a joke, just because it was different than our culture.
I do remember getting like maybe 1 3-hour class on Iraq, the various regions, maybe the Sunni and Shia, about as much as 1 day of college class. It was pretty much a snooze fest. I mean, I knew of some things of the Muslim culture. I mean, it just kind of floated around the barracks. This is what Iraq is like. This is what Afghanistan is like. Maybe we were talking with someone who was over there.
Sunni was good. Shiite was bad. Sunni meant sunny. They would always say, remember Sunni, because it sounds like sunny. Sunny's good. Shiite, no good.
I can't say that I recall, honestly, too many people using that term. Haji, I know that term because all of my grandparents have made the Hajj, so that's what they were called, Ever since I was a little boy, I'd be calling my grandfather Haji. But when I got in, I didn't really hear it used as in a derogatory type of way.
Boy, yeah, if someone pissed me off, fortunately, and I didn't think about it later, but honestly, yeah, it's embarrassing. I definitely twisted it from just meaning male or whatever, like a certain type of male. To me, it was, or definitely, like, in context, it would have been, like, that male that just pissed me off, or that just scared me in some way. And instead of saying I'm scared, it came out like that. Explicative, this. Used to refer to a situation to anybody that was like a threat.
I would always say Haji, just because to me that was like the least offensive of all the words. I don't think I really had an understanding of it. Like they told us that Haji was, it just meant like an Iraqi man, like an elder or whatever. But like we would say it, it wouldn't have like that sense of reverence. You know what I mean? It was just a way to label a group of people.
I didn't really understand the term itself. I eventually understood that it was when someone visited Mecca once in their lifetime for their Hajj, which, I don't know, it's not really something you think about a whole lot. You just, make suit and go along with
It was
it.
Johnny Quest. The old cartoon, Johnny Quest had a friend. His sidekick was a brown-skinned person that they called Haji. That was his name. And he spoke with an Indian accent, I believe. It ended up translating to anybody who had brown skin and their nose was different, I guess.
Yeah, I was in Afghanistan, and being of Iranian descent, I speak Farsi and they speak Pashto, and there were civilians who worked on base, and never really, became like trouble or anything, but we were able to communicate, in broken sort of hybrid Farsi and Pashto, and and then he tried the person that at the BX, which is like the target on base. He tried to get really comfortable and start asking me questions that shouldn't have been really asked from his situation to mine, and so I had to draw a boundary there, and just realize that is there something that he's trying to figure out, because he's I look like him, but I'm dressed in the other gear, so it kind of probably messed with him a little bit, and maybe he was just curious. It was probably just his curious nature. I think it did make others in the U.S. Armed forces, like they always looked, oh wow, they're communicating, like what's being said, So I had to really look at that and sort of be careful.
Yeah, we took a little course before going out to, say, a post to work with women. Just basic stuff like stop, hold on, raise your hands. I'm not a doctor, stuff. And then from there, because I'd tried other languages before, and it's just that I was able to pick it up somehow, and people. It was definitely beneficial for me to try to talk to somebody in their language, because they warmed up to me, I would hope. At least it seemed like there's less friction. So yeah, I practice all the time. Tell people that I am not a man, that I'm a woman with my hair pulled back. I use that a lot. Do you have water? I don't have water. So I'm not a doctor. Those like simple phrases. To some degree, almost everyone did. Or at least you tried. I would practice with people, with the Iraqi policemen, and then I would practice later with the other females, or whoever was on post, really.
I didn't learn too much about the Iraqi culture when I was there. I had a good friend that did. Like he would spend a lot of time with the interpreters in the interpreters room at our cop. And, like he got a lot of shit from a lot of guys for that. Like it was definitely like a huge like anti-Arab, anti-Islamic sentiment in my unit. So I think they were just like projecting a bunch of shit on him because he wanted to have like a positive relationship with their interpreters and like learn about the culture and that. Guys would talk about, or like would try to label him as a traitor, or like would question his loyalty.
Honestly, I knew maybe a dozen words, and I've since then forgotten them. This was 8 years ago. Oh no, it was interesting, but I didn't try to interact too much. I didn't feel like I had the right. I was one of those self-conscious soldiers. While I was deployed, I kind of knew I wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, Jesus, the big one. No, fuck, I can't. Or stop. I can't remember, but it was always Shukran Steak, which was how we do with my friend, and there was Shoizan be like, oh, very good, and then Mafi-san would be like, oh, not good today.
This was in Bahrain.
Yeah. So like, yeah, we walk on post and be like, hey, Shoizan. I'd be like, Mafi-san.
After I got out from my deployments and out of the Air Force, again, before I joined, I had a Muslim background in Maine and Muslim and everything. So of course I dealt with that the whole time, but I became more sympathetic to Afghans and the Muslim population in general, because I know that they're just people who want to look after their daily lives and what surrounds them. They don't want to harm anyone or hurt anyone. They just want to look after their children and their lives just like us. It didn't make me feel hatred towards them, one or the other, like towards Americans or anything like that. I just know that no matter where you go, it's part of life. Someone is not going to be happy with you strictly based on your race, no matter where you go. Not that it was any better, but I made more generalizations about the Western sort of depiction of Muslim people. Studying Middle Eastern studies, Arabic, totally came out of my experiences in my TDY to Afghanistan and that sort of back and forth I had with the locals on base. It really opened up my eyes to the reasons why prejudice really exists is because of lack of communication, I feel, and people not being able to talk about the issues, hand to hand, or in even the right contexts, and fully understand each other. So that's why I wanted to learn Arabic, and I wanted to perfect my Farsi, and possibly learn a third area language. To try and help close that gap.
It's probably the same. There's a definite threat from people, but it doesn't have. It's not based on your culture. It's based on your intentions. So my view of Muslims is no different from my view of any person I see on the street.
I think the biggest change I noticed is I guess I'm kind of afraid of Middle Eastern people. More of an unconscious level. I'm fine, talking to someone that looks Middle Eastern, dark person, whatever. Even military age males. I might get a little anxious or whatever. But, I was a treatment program in Menlo Park for PTSD. And, we just finished up with a group, and I was walking down a hallway. I was by the nurse's station. I walked through this doorway, and there was a Middle Eastern dude kind of off to my right. And I immediately just pivoted, I was gonna take him out or something, And that's something I didn't really realize that I had that kind of paranoia still or whatever. Yeah, it's kind of an eye-opening incident, I guess, to see that that's still kind of hardwired in me.
Kind of protected them more, to be honest. I went in knowing that the religion wasn't at fault for anything. I mean, we have religious fanatics of all flavors.
My interaction with Muslims on their terms, their turf, reinforced the fact that it is beautiful religion, if that's what you want. I've never felt like any ill will against Muslims. Part of it is this is so hard to explain to people, but September 11th and everything. I don't agree with what they did. Okay, but if somebody's on my turf, not occupying my country, and I don't agree with it, I would do anything I could to get them to leave.